Welcome to this last of this year's series of new conversations. Conversations that are intended to reflect, spark, provoke, celebrate, and reimagine what it means to build community prosperity. Our institute wants to ensure that students and citizens, and is there a difference? I don't know, have access to learning, opportunities, and research that will help them lead transformative change within their communities through building empathy, creativity, and courage. We begin this final discussion with song to help place us in the right frame of mind and heart to place us in this place. So please welcome the Turning Road Drummers. Since April of 2015, Roy has been serving as a consultant to Vibrant Communities Calgary, working on the Enough for All strategy as well as the Aboriginal Poverty Reduction strategy. He came out of retirement to, in his words, assist in the process of getting First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people to meet their full potential, to become productive members of society. And Roy has been speaking with us and taking us on a learning journey of systems thinking, as learned in part through the Blackfoot cosmology, the concept of anitapisi. We are also privileged to have Angie Jelena leading a conversation with Roy and with the Institute's 3 changemakers in residence, who we are finally giving a public platform to say, well, whatever comes to mind. To vent, provoke, imagine, and inspire.
Elder Rich Crowshoe talked about 4 things. He talked about venue, action, language, and songs. He said as long as you have those 4 things, you can legitimize the process. So here we have a venue, which is the Calgary Public Library. Action, which is what we're doing. I'm here presenting, we're going to have these panelists. Language. We have the English language. We also have the Blackfoot language. And the important thing is the songs, which is what you're hearing. This is what anitapisi looks like. So once we start making those relationship building, those bridge building, those connections through anitapisi. Then we started putting the different agencies that we work with, that we connected with. And those different agencies in Siksika, we have different societies. We call them Ishkanakkatsiks. Those are the all comrades. They're all the agencies that work together. And this is anitapisi. Thank you. I'm grateful that you have listened to me. Thank you.
It's a major issue when the fact that in this day and age, it is technology that drives massive change, that can disrupt what we're doing, and yet nonprofits, particularly the larger ones, I would say, just sort of go, whoa, no, not just yet. What or how can a nonprofit sector learn, collaborate, engage with this movement in order to increase, I'll say, our chances, nonprofit chances, of making satisfying impact, of making greater impact in the future?
We get into it with any sort of buzzword or buzz term where we're talking about either a small piece of technology, that like an app that does something that's really great, or we get into transformative system change, which is ultimately based on social innovation as well. One of the greatest efforts that I've seen lately has been related to the buzzword is collective impact, and buzzwords do us a service and a disservice at the same time. They do us a service because they get us to be talking more about something that we may not have been talking about before. They do us a disservice because everybody thinks that they know exactly what we're talking about, and everybody wants to be doing it, and all of a sudden committee work has become collective impact somehow. And the reality is, though, that we need to start working in really, really different ways. What I am seeing to be more effective is when we can, kind of release and reorient some of that brilliance that we were talking about from within our organizations to work together towards systems change. And it's not just the sector, it is across sectors. We've been talking for ages about working across sectors. But we need to do it in such a way that we are respecting and valuing what each brings to the table.
Organizations and people working together across boundaries is how we're going to solve problems. It's never going to be done there is no one agency, however wonderful you are, that can solve any one big problem. And I think we have to also think, though, of cumulative impact. And that's what we don't think about that a lot. And the funding cycles that we have are typically 1 year. Sometimes you have multiple year funding, but when we started to look at we're going to be 25 years old at the end of this year, and we started to look at, because in the environmental world, you can get pretty discouraged. Well, I mean, I guess everybody can say that, but things move very slowly. And so we've started to look at going back to our first grants and looking at how many grants we gave to subsequent organizations. And we've started to build these amazing stories of impact and change that we've seen, but we haven't noticed because it's happened so slowly. And so I think that even Walter's story about the child tax credit, that took a long time. These things take a long time, but when they work, other things start to move. And so the long-term cumulative effect of the work we do is important. We don't want to lose sight of that long game too sometimes.
What I've learned, pragmatically speaking, is sooner or later somebody's going to ask me, so is what all the stuff that you're doing actually making a difference? And I better have an answer for that. So rather than the other folks from the outside determining what they think I should be making a difference in, it's usually better if we decide what we will be measuring ourselves on. So that's a learning I've come to over the years. And have the discipline to say, at the end of this cycle, whatever it is, at the end of this funding or 3 years, business plan we have, strategic plan we have, we're going to measure these 3 things. And we determine it, rather than somebody on the outside saying, you know what, I want to know in this program how many jobs you've created. Then I would say, well, we're actually not measuring that. What we're measuring instead is this. And you can come and ask us about that. So it takes a bit of foresight and discipline to define what all of us can agree on to make a difference on.
I think that one of the things that I want to see more than anything is respect. What I would love to see is board members that come from the corporate sector that really respect the skills and knowledge that exists within a nonprofit organization. The folks within the nonprofit organization really respecting what's happening from, some of the things that they're trying to shift from a policy perspective in the government sector. What I'd love to see is people within the government sector really listening for the voice of lived experience in the community. So I actually think that we do have the skills, the resources, everything we need to be able to solve these problems. I think we actually do have it. I think it exists in community. It just doesn't necessarily exist on an organization by organization or on a sector by sector basis. And the way we organize our resources and the way we structure our work gets in the way of us being able to tap into all of those things in a really effective way.
I liked a lot of the concepts that were being discussed around what we do wrong as nonprofits. Although the library is not really a nonprofit, but we're a public sector organization.
Those buzzwords, right, we talk about quite often. We need to go a little bit deeper and maybe stop looking at excuses and like, oh, we have this term we can use, we have that term, let's get together. We do it at work all the time too. Collective impact is one example, and we all get crazy about it. And then there's another term that comes the next time around. So I think we need to keep pushing and working together and actually getting the work done.
You know, what they were talking about today around collective impact is really important too, and how we need to learn how to work differently. I'm in partnership development, so that's something that even our organization needs to do better. Create better internal capacity to work in partnership. It means that you have to do something different.